Welcome to episode 3 of the Oneness series in the Parsha. I'm standing in the north shore of Kauai. Behind me is the lighthouse, which is the northernmost point in Hawaii. And I chose this background because this week we're going to talk about Avraham, who was the lighthouse of the world, and who grew up in a time of extreme darkness. There was paganism, idolatry, and he was the first one to introduce the light of the oneness of Hashem, the oneness of the Creator, back into the world, which is why Hashem chose him to father the Jewish nation, whose mission is to channel oneness in the world. So you're familiar with the story when he was a child, 3 years old or maybe a little bit older, and he was searching for the truth. And he saw the sun, he saw this powerful ball in the sky that brings heat and light and growth to the world, and he said, this must be the most powerful force in the universe. And then the sun set and the moon rose, and he said, oh, the moon must be more powerful than the sun because it knocks the sun out of the sky. So maybe the moon is the most powerful force. And then the moon rose and the sun rose, the moon set and the sun rose, and he realized it's neither. And he came to realize that there's a higher power that brought the sun and the moon into existence. What's fascinating about the story, and what's curious about the story, is that why did it have to come about through this process? He could have seen a miracle, he could have seen something out of the world and realized that there's a higher power. But the story we're told of his childhood is that he's wrestling with these two opposite forces. Is it the sun, is it the moon? Until he comes to realize that there's something above both. Once again, along the themes of the duality of the oneness and how the tension between opposites often push us to explore something higher than both of those opposites. There's something of a unified oneness that gives rise to this polar opposite. There's a Kabbalah book called Avodas HaKodesh, and he's talking about the essence of Hashem, Ein Sof, trying to, so to speak, define what is the essence of Hashem. And he says it cannot be guvul, obviously limitation, because God is unlimited, infinite. If God is finite, what kind of God is that? But it also cannot be infinity, because if you're infinite and not finite, then that's also a problem. You're not finite, you're missing something. So that propels us to say that God is not infinite only, neither is he finite only. He must be something undefinable that's beyond finitude or infinity. And in that way we come to determine that the essence of Hashem is undefinable. But how do we arrive at that undefinable essence? Is by saying he's not this and he's not that. He's not just both, he's something beyond both of these things. And so it's an interesting process. It's a similar process to Avraham, where we're saying it's not just this, it's not just that, it's something greater than the sum total of these two. And so wherever we encounter polar opposites and we see this tension in our personal lives, interpersonal, communal, global, political, whatever it might be, we're called to step back and look at the larger picture and see whether there's a pattern here of two opposite forces that seem to be wrestling for, what is the truth or what is right. And there's something higher that brings these two opposites into play. And so once again, another insight on the duality of the oneness and how Abraham's wrestling with that duality of the sun and the moon and what is the ultimate force of the universe brought him to this understanding of a higher power. And similarly in our process. Have a good Shabbos, and once again, we'll see you next week. And there's more resources below, at the link below, you'll find more to study on this topic. All the best.